Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So, today we're going to talk about persuading people politically, how it might be best.
I would love to talk to him. When it comes to like rural progress or talking about progressivism in a way that makes sense and connects to people, I think he's probably the best on the internet.
To approach those that you are trying to change the worldview of, and what video games can teach us about that. We're doing this because I had a couple of people ask why I didn't push back on certain ideas that were contained in Carlson's little rant. That
By the way, Zelda Wind Waker is my favorite Zelda game of all time. It's one of my favorite video games of all time. I felt so accomplished beating it because it took me like 3 years to beat it. That's a freaking long ass
they
game.
know I don't believe are true, but I just kind of let them slide. I would imagine that most people have played a video game, and you are probably aware that at some point a character or an event will happen that will give you the exact tool you need just before you need it. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. You should probably try to mimic that when you are trying to persuade somebody politically. Give them the tool they need at the moment they need it. Don't give them too much at once. Small, digestible bits of information are a whole lot more effective. It's been my experience anyway.
Dude, I love this so much. When I say we need to come at people, and I said this to Destiny too. When I say we need to come at people with how things add up, not the final equation, this is exactly what I mean. Don't come up to people talking about like big ideas, like, oh, this is why we need a collective society. This is why we need this is why we need this one ideology. This is why you have white privilege. This is why there's toxic masculinity. This is why there's all these complex things. If you want to get people on your side, you got to plant seeds. You got to do it slowly. You got to treat people in some regards like children, not in a condescending way, but in a sense where they're not used to be introduced to these topics and everything.
A lot of times, if you are talking to somebody who is dead set on one particular issue, such as the retention thing, okay, they're using that as an excuse because they
Yeah,
don't.
you want to help people come to your conclusion on their own. You want there to be a solid foundation for them to believe what you believe. You need to set that foundation up first. And if you don't set that foundation up first, even if they might agree on a couple points, they're never truly going to change their minds. So, for example, I can get somebody to agree with me that we need more government action by a government ran by the people and, not ran by corporations. But after this conversation, they're going to go away, like, a small government minded conservative, for example. These people think government is bad. All government is bad. And I tell them, like, oh no, some government is good. We need a government ran by the people so the people have power against other corrupting, powerful influences like corporations, things we don't have a vote in. I can get them to agree on that. But if I can't change their foundational understanding of that process, then they're going to leave and just go back to all government is bad. Or when we look at group theory in political science, people vote not off of being informed off of policy. They vote off of like social groups and retrospective voting. So it's going to be about who they talk to in their private time as well. So you need to just plant seeds, very, as much as possible when you can. If you come too hard at people, you're not going to be able to actually penetrate their minds. They're going to be very adverse to your ideas if you just come at them with, 1,000 different things at once and you try to pound it in their brains and, you treat them like they're idiots that just aren't getting it. Like, wow, I'm so right. Universal healthcare is all across the world. Why don't you understand it? I mean, some people don't like government control because government has done bad by them. And you need to talk to them and say, no, government isn't the issue. Bad government is. Like Bernie Sanders doesn't want government controlling us. He wants us controlling the government. And that's how you need to explain it over and over and over again. And you need to be really patient with people because it's not always going to transfer. In the best way. It's not going to work every time, but you need to keep that level head. It needs to be a disciplined approach or you're simply not going to get anywhere.
Kick down and marginalize this group of people. Pushing back on a wider idea, such as our foreign policy is good and that's what makes Americans safe. that's probably going to be very ineffective if you go beyond that. You're talking about somebody who doesn't, they want to marginalize people within the United States. They are not going to care about the motivations of those overseas. So it's going to be very hard to make the argument that our foreign policy really isn't that great, and that in fact a lot of the bad things that have made Americans unsafe are because of it. That's probably beyond the scope of what they're ready to talk about. We have to
Yeah, stay away from foreign policy in general.
acknowledge that everybody is on a path. Me, you, the person who sent that message, everybody is on a path. We're all in different spots. We have to meet each other where we're at. If you try to go too far beyond what the person is ready to accept, it may do more harm than good, because not only will they discount the extra stuff that you've added, they may use that as a reason to blow off your main point about the question they asked. It's that old thing, was informed people sound like insane people to ignorant people, something along those lines.
Yeah,
So
if I say to somebody, we need our community to rise up, or like not rise up. If I say, for example, in Pennsylvania, you need to hire people to take out snow when there's a big snowstorm. Many communities still hire private contractors for snow removal. If I say to them, we need to decommodify snow removal, we need to stop paying private companies for snow removal, and we need to make our own city snow removal unit because it'll save us money. I need to explain it as a simple solution to a problem. I can't explain it as like, some type of big ideological thing against private industry. I need to say, I'm here to fix a problem. I'm here to try and fix this issue. I'm not trying to be a socialist or a capitalist or some fancy political label. I'm doing something that's going to help our lives be better. No more private industry taking our money. We're going to do it on our own. Why are we giving other people money? Why are we giving corporations money to do something our community can do better? That's where you start.
what it boils down to. They will be able to disregard everything that you've said if you go too far, if you get far outside their comfort zone. You can't teach algebra to people who can't add. And
True.
everybody,
Dude, he uses the same analogy about math. Dude, I want to talk to him so bad. Holy crap.
doesn't matter how informed you are, there is somebody on the path ahead of you and behind you. You have to frame your arguments in that way. You have to meet them where they're at. And I have found it to be more effective if it's small, digestible pieces of information. Something you can tell them something one day, and then maybe the next day add something else, and then something else. And as time goes on, their
Exactly.
views
So that snow idea that I just brought up, bring that up for private cyber schools or whatever. Like, why are they not being held accountable? Maybe we should have a government ran by the people so we can work together and vote on these issues to make sure these corporations are not exploiting our school system or something like that. We need our government ran by us. We still need a government that functions well, but that government needs to be ran by us. Spencer, thank you so much for the $2. Yep, beta.
shifts.
Beta.
But most importantly, when you're talking about something with, like the retention thing, it's most important because that's a perfect one. It's objectively false. Like, you can show it. Here you go. This is why it happens. Boom, boom, boom. Stick straight to that topic. Don't deviate. Because at the end of it, they're left with only a couple of options about their initial source of information. Either that initial source, that propaganda source.
Yes, focus on the policy. When you're talking policy, don't cross it over into politics. Focus laser focus on that policy. If you're talking about healthcare policy, focus on that. Move them over on that one issue. If you tie it back to their social grouping, now this is another thing with group theory in political science. If you tie it back to their social grouping, like being a conservative, being a Christian, being a Republican, if you let them tie it back to that, they're going to be very hard to move. But if you can disassociate, if you can isolate a policy issue away from their political passions and from their ideological set, if you can isolate a policy away from them, it's so easier to change. It's so easier to change their opinion on like one policy or one issue if you can separate it from all the noise.
Is incompetent and can't gather basic information, or it's intentionally misleading. And either way, it helps erode the trust they have in that propaganda source that has got their hooks in them. So that's the reason I do it that way. and I do this with a lot of topics. There are a lot of times when I actually have to bite my tongue on some of them because it's when it brushes up against topics that I really care about, I kind of have to consciously hold back because I want to go into other stuff. However, I want the information that is most useful, the tool they need at that moment, to be handed to them in a way they can't refuse to accept. Now, that's all based on my experience as to what is most effective. Other people may have more success other ways, you know. And if you aren't doing it to actually change the person's mind or persuade them, if you're just doing it to feel better,
You grew up poor and didn't even realize it until you filled out your student loan application. Yeah. I mean, most poor people don't know they're poor and they don't know that they act like they're poor. One of the big things, there's programs for people who are in poverty and who go to college, that try to get them like ready for the what is it called, like professional class of workers or whatever. One of the things they do with these poor kids is they teach them how to dress, how to play golf, and how to play tennis, because that culture, just the act of being able to act like you're not poor, is so important to get out of poverty. So putting that, like, because all the people that are gonna be giving you opportunities are gonna be rich and are gonna be a part of this lifestyle. So they have to teach people how to do golf and stuff. I don't know how to play those things because poor schools don't have golf and tennis programs. Those are two privileged sports. But literally, probably 99% of the people that are gonna hire you during your life are gonna be big golf players and stuff like that.
that's an entirely different
Big
story.
golfers.
Unload. I mean, because while it may not help them, somebody who is in the comments section or somebody who
My accent, I need to, like, I don't have a terrible accent, but I can't talk like I'm talking to my friends or anything like that from my cold town, talking about the way we I'm trying to think of a good saying. Uh you know what, bud? Like that. Like, you know what, bud? How you doing? Like that type of stuff. You have to temper that and you need to make it sound more professional, of course. And a lot of people deal with this who come from poor backgrounds.
overhears it, it may be giving them the tool they need, that extra information you provide. But
13 years in public education to come out unskilled because people need childcare. Most of a teacher's education, like a high school teacher or like a middle school teacher, most of it is how to teach and how to manage children. They aren't really, in a lot of cases, unless if you're a pretty high level teacher at a high school, if you're just a middle school teacher, most of your education wasn't really on your subject. Your job is to manage kids. And you just have to hope that the teachers really care about the subjects they're teaching. That's why we need such broad standards across the board for teachers at high schools. It's too strict, but that's why we do have standards in general.
we should probably try, given the fact that people who are more progressive tend to look at bigger pictures, tend to have more nuance.
Yeah, okay. So when he says bigger picture and more nuance, people who are progressive have an easier time at looking things from a structural level. If you're more conservative, you're typically going to look at things at a more individual level. That's why it's hard for many conservative-minded people. And this is a sociological thing. This is why it's so hard for many conservative-minded people to look at like systemic racism or socioeconomic inequality. Not only do they not get the concept of how that affects people, they don't want to admit it. It's a point of personal pride. Like where I get in life is a result of my hard work, of that Protestant work ethic, of that rugged individualism and all that stuff.
We should probably try to frame our arguments, our talking points, our discussions, so they can be more easily accepted by people who maybe don't always look at the bigger pictures. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues with progressive messaging
Yeah.
is trying.
Too academic, too pretentious, too high-minded, not accepting enough, too what's another good word? Yeah, those are pretty good words.
Trying to paint the whole thing at once.
For a
Trying to-
party that needs the working class on their side, progressives aren't really good at talking to the working class. A lot of progressive messaging is ran by people like Breonna Joy Gray. It really is. Like these people who go to big universities and get hired because they have good resumes. So they get hired to these big campaigns. They don't know how to talk to rural America. They don't know how to talk to even parts of like poor urban America. Like they don't know how to do it in general. It just doesn't work.
provide that whole picture at once For a lot of people, that's too much to take in at one time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
True.
it's just a thought.
Dude,
Yeah.
perfect. This is awesome. Love it. Love every moment of this guy. Great influence on this space. I wish he was bigger. He should be getting more views, honestly. But of course, he gives nuanced takes about the real world. He doesn't just go on here and yell about yell about corporations bad, and he doesn't just virtue signal. So he's not going to blow up as much. But he's still pretty good size.